home, back to Godhead, to the spiritual world, according to Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadadi Sva Patantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagragana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagragana Lalita Shri Vishakanpitam Shat. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatata Satarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langai Degiram Yatkripata Mahamunde Shri Gurun Dina Taranam Vancha Kalpatarivescha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pratayata Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauritvise Namaha Namo Brahmane Devaya Go Brahmanetaya Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasiti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So aligning the different verses based on similar subjects that were spoken at different times during the instructions for deeper understanding of the specific subject matter described by Lord Krishna, and also every word in Bhagavad Gita is a personal promise whispered into our ears, especially on this Father's Day by our ultimate Father, right? So this is an instruction for each one of us, and it's a promise that is given by Lord Krishna to each one of us. So again, faith is the anchor. Faith is the medium of exchange with Lord Krishna. So when we go to China, you use their currency. If you go to Thailand, it's baht, their currency, etc. In India, it's rupees. But with the Supreme Lord, it's the faith is the medium of currency. So you have more faith, you give more faith, then you get more from the Lord as far as spiritual benedictions are concerned. So the verses, as we know, 5 subject matters in Bhagavad Gita: Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. These are the main 5 subjects, and there are many verses, right? So it is not that there are only few verses that are stated here. I just put some examples there, but then throughout Bhagavad Gita, there are many verses describe the Supreme Lord, not just from the 10th and the 18th chapter. Similarly, about Jiva, there are many verses. Similarly, with material nature, eternal time, and karma, which is the activities of all the. When you look at it from 100 feet above, not looking at the root of a particular verse and going deep into one particular verse, which we should, but looking at it from 100 feet above, there are various categories. You can take many of these verses and put them into different categories, right? And then that gives us a deeper understanding of the categorization in Bhagavad Gita. So different ways to go to the spiritual world. There are at least 56 verses. A reincarnation alone, 34 verses, spread across all the chapters of Bhagavad Gita. And also we have faith, everything about faith is there spread across Bhagavad Gita, and many different categorizations, right? So Devata worship versus the 3 modes of material nature, who's dear to Lord Krishna, right? So today, the focus is on going back home, back to Godhead, which is different ways to go to the spiritual world. The categorization of Bhagavad Gita verses. So here in chapter 10, Lord Krishna's manifestations, opulences, representations, and expansion. So I've given this acronym called MORE, M-O-R-E. So M stands for manifestations, O stands for opulences, R stands for representations, and the E stands for expansions or energies, because Lord Krishna talks about many of the manifestations, opulences, representations, etc. As you can see, I just put them into various categories: animals, birds, fishes, snakes, plants, etc. And then animals, he talks about Uchchaishrava, the horse who appeared from the churning of the ocean of milk. If you remember, that was the second item that came. And of course, the 12th thing that came out from the churning of ocean of milk is Dhanvantari himself, who's a plenary plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So it's very coincidental because Dhanvantari is the 12th incarnation of Lord Krishna, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, and also Dhanvantari appeared as the 12th thing that actually appeared, a personality that appeared from the churning of the ocean of milk. So yesterday we were fortunate, we did a very nice yagya on Dhanvantari Homa, because he's supposed to be the person who can cure. We know Aswini Kumaras, but more than them, of course, because he's an expansion of Lord Krishna, Dhanvantari. So Dhanvantari Homa is there's powerful 25 verses from Matsya Purana as well, glorifying Dhanvantari. So here you can see Uchchaishava, Airavata, Surabhi line, etc. So you can see there are various animals and fishes and snakes and sages and demigods or demons, scriptures, etc. So this is there in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And also the most often quoted, I'm just getting in all of you into this mood of getting to where we want to go, which is verses from Bhagavad Gita that discusses about different ways to go back home, back to Godhead, according to Bhagavad Gita. So this is a nice little funneling of these verses, and there is a nice little summary in the end, which describes, nicely how we can go back home, back to Godhead. So it's almost like you can think of a burning house, and then the house is burning, or your work, you're at your hospital, wherever you're working in a university, wherever you're working, right? In a manufacturing company, in a software company, doesn't matter. There's always a fire drill that takes place at least once a year, right? That is in the unlikely event there is a fire, so they want you to get used to it, right? So they don't tell you that all of you need to exit this burning building in one door, through one door, right? Then there's a problem. There's going to be a bottleneck that everybody will try to go out through that one door, and then one person may be very far away from that because the office area may be very big. So if you're expecting everybody to go through that one exit, many people may not make it outside, right? So that analogy we can use in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is giving us different opportunities to go back home, back to Godhead. Because what does it say in our fire drill? Whichever is the nearest exit, you take that and go outside the building, because getting out of this burning building is the most important. It does not matter which exit we take to get out of the building, so that we are up there in a safe area, right? So Lord Krishna is giving us wide variety of options, right? So that you can take what you want. It's not like all of those options we need to take, just like 9 forms of devotional service as we read. Take any one of them as well, and we perfect that, we can go back home. It's hearing or chanting, etc. And that's why the great personalities are given for each of the 9 forms of devotional service. Like Sukdev Goswami for Kirtana, right? For hearing, it was Maharaj Parikshit. He attained perfection by that. So similarly, there are many verses in Bhagavad Gita which talks about different ways to go back home, back to Godhead. So it's up to us to choose what we want in the best possible way, in the devotional way, so that we can go back home, back to Godhead. So most often quoted verses, I just put it. You can easily find this out from Veda base as well. And Sarva Dharman Parityaja is the most often quoted verse by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada over 1,300 times, and a few other verses as well, as you can see. So what should be our goal of life, right? So we know that there are great personalities who says, I don't mind wherever it is I go to hell, as long as I'm devoted to Lord. Yes, of course, that is the ultimate way that we can aim for. But we will take sample of verses. This is from the 4th canto, Sanat Kumara to Prithu Maharaj, right? So they have come to preach to Prithu Maharaj. So for those of you who have joined us, Srimad Bhagavatam classes, we have done about 45 months worth of classes. And in one of those, actually 4 months, we covered this Prithu Maharaj's pastime, because it's one of those most glorious pastimes spread across multiple chapters. So this is Sanat Kumara. Towards the end, Sanat Kumaras, the Kumaras are coming and giving wonderful instruction to the Lord. He's also an expansion of the Lord. So here, out of the 4 principles, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation has to be taken very seriously. Okay, so we are just quoting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's not interpret too much into what we may think it should be. But again, this is Sanat Kumara's teaching to Prithu Maharaj. Liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature, which is death. And Prahlad Maharaj's instructions to his demoniac schoolmates, right? So we highlighted certain things for us to have that focus. So here it is said that because the ultimate goal for the devotees of Narayana is liberation from the bondage of material existence. Okay? And then it's another instruction of Prahlad Maharaj. This is directly to Hiranyakashipu. You can see that. This is a very famous verse, right? Nate vidu swatagati Vishnu duraseyaye Bahirata Maninaha Andayatandi Upaniyamana Stapisa Tantram Urudamni Bandaha. Right. So again, the key here for today's class is that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu. And we also have this famous verse 10.10 from Bhagavad Gita, part of the Chatursloki. And to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Again, the focus is how to go back home, back to Godhead from Bhagavad Gita. So the prerequisite is Krishna is saying that if you are constantly devoted to me, don't worry, I'll show you the exit, how to get out of this material world, how to get out of this office area which is in fire. So I'll show you the nearest exit so you can get out of that, right? So, so we get this, instruction from Bhagavad Gita today. So similarly, like GPS guides us from anywhere. Doesn't matter whether I'm in Burlington having prasad in our Jagannath Mishra Prabhu's house, who's joined us. Thank you, Prabhu. Or I can be somewhere else. But if I want to go to the Toronto temple, if I put it in GPS Toronto temple, so it'll take me from Burlington or Peterborough, anywhere, to that particular destination. So similarly, scriptures guide us to go anywhere to the desired destination. So, if you think of some vehicle preferences, right? So some may be bigger in size, like a car or a truck. Some may be smaller, bike or a cycle, and some of us may have to walk in some cases, right? And also we have this route preference, right? Avoid the highway. We don't want to pay the toll money, right? Avoid, even we want to go in the smaller route. Maybe there is an accident in the highway, right? So we have multiple options, right? Avoid the carpool lane, etc. So we have choices of route preferences, going alone or with a family, or going in any size vehicle as well, right? So different ways to go to the spiritual world. Also, we have multiple options. So this is the analogy that you just heard a little earlier. So material world is considered to be, if you can mute your background, Amal Thakur Prabhu, if you can just mute so that whomsoever is there in the background.
Yeah, I did.
Thank you, Prabhu. So material world is compared to a blazing fire, right? Of a building you can think of, right? Of material existence. So building is on fire. So the key is getting out of the building. So don't worry too much about, anything. Get out of the building is the most important part of that. So you would have seen a similar map like this in your hospital, in your workplace, etc., nursing home, wherever you're working, you will see this emergency evacuation plan, right? So it's not like you have to go, all of you, 1,000 of you in that building need to exit to one exit, which is so far away. It could be close for somebody, but it could be too far for another person, right? And there could be a lot of blockages, etc., as you're going from your end, this end of the office to that exit. So there is always multiple exits in any office area. Even if you go to a theater, there is always multiple exits, right? In a theater, as you can see, it's not like everybody has to go through one exit to get out of the building. So just like we have multiple exits, so similarly, Krishna is giving us multiple options. So there's more, code compliance and other opportunities are there. So we must set ourselves up to get out of the danger and not hinder ourselves or others from escaping the danger, right? So that's important, right? So we can't be a roadblock when it comes to spiritual activities of our family members or friends, help them so that they can also get out, right? So just imagine if there's a fire and you block the exit. Just imagine here, you can see this lock here, right? Doesn't make sense at all. That's an exit, and if the building is burning, nobody can get out because they're going to get burned because it's locked. It's a metal sort of gate you can see, right? So another lock here, and this is blocked, the exit is blocked. So where we are going with this is we're getting into these verses, wonderful verses from Bhagavad Gita. So now we look at different ways to go to the spiritual world. The choice is ours. Krishna has given us multiple choices, like he is given Arjuna as well. So these are the keys that you have to open the door and go to the spiritual world, according to what Lord Krishna has given us. And by the mercy of His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, we are able to get to know about all these various parts, right? So as we heard, there are about 56 escape routes to go from the material world to spiritual world from these 700 verses. So significant portion of Bhagavad Gita deals with how to get out of this material world, right? So many exit routes are grounded in devotional service, but some, very important, some can be cultivated outside of the devotional practices as well, right? So what does not come naturally to us and what needs to be cultivated is what is stated in Bhagavad Gita, as we know, right? Krishna does not say, see with your eyes or eat with your tongue or taste with your tongue. Krishna does not say that, right? He goes beneath the layers, right? He says 5.1, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Kavyastini Suni Chaiva Swapakecha Pandita Samadarshana, right? So he says not just seeing with eyes, but see with equal vision. You know, whether it's a Brahmana or a dog or a dog eater, everybody, you know, seeing is equal vision. Similarly, he does not say eat with your mouth or taste with your tongue. He says, Yajnashista Sinasanto, right? 3.13, right? If you offer it to me and then when you eat it, you will expunge all your sins. Otherwise, you're verily eating the sin. So it's always one layer beneath or multiple layer beneath. And these are open secrets, right, in Bhagavad Gita that is given to us. So it is within our realm of possibility for each one of us to receive this ultimate benefit of these wonderful teachings, again, by the mercy of His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. If we gradually increase and get better, not only our lives get better, but ultimate result is guaranteed at the end of our life, according to Bhagavad Gita. So we'll contemplate on these paths because all different exits will take us to safety. Okay, so all roads lead to the same destination, which is the spiritual world. So we will get some of you to read this if you can. So we have a few more slides to cover, quite a few slides to cover because we started a bit late. For those of you who joined us late, Bhakti Rasayana Sagar Maharaj was supposed to join, but due to technical difficulties, we are unable to get him. Maharaj, so today I'm just stepping in to fill in the gaps here. So if we can get maybe Jagannath Mishra Prabhu, if you're still there, if you can read to us what is there, which is underlined as well.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for joining, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Different ways to go to the spiritual world. Bhagavad Gita 2.15, O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Shall I carry on, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Bhagavad Gita 2.51, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. And 270-72, a person is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled, but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for giving us this pathway to get out of this material world. So again, the key words for the topic of discussion today, different ways to go to the spiritual world, is what is in purple text and it's underlined, right? So the first one is 2.15, not disturbed by happiness and distress. So this is a constant theme in Bhagavad Gita, being equipoised. We read about this even in the 6th canto, Vritrasura's pastime, right? So being equipoised, right? So if you're not disturbed by happiness and distress, if you have this upper control limit, lower control limit, median, and if you draw this, graph on an hourly basis, Monday to Friday, or even Saturday and Sunday included, all this goes up like this, right? Our moods and everything, they're extremely happy or extremely distressed or unhappy, etc. So where Krishna is saying, be in the median. Don't get too excited when good things happen. Don't be too dejected when bad things happen. Just by that, can you imagine that, this is nothing to do with spiritual here, right? So this is like on a day-to-day activity. If you're getting angry or anything like that, if you can just reduce it by few notches down, if you're not disturbed by happiness and distress, then you're eligible for liberation. That's the word by Lord Krishna. In the second verse there, engaging in devotional service. This is there, which is the common factor for all of us. It's a common denominator of all of us. So just by engaging in devotional service, any of the 9 forms or all the 9 forms, whatever we can, then we go back home, back to God. And the third one is related to first one as well, right? Not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires, right? So I want this, I want that, let me go after that. Even if you just control to a large extent, it's a gradual progression, right? Let's not think it's a turn off a switch and then suddenly we go back home, back to God, because today I've controlled my incessant flow of desires, right? It's a constant practice, right? So in these 3 verses, there are different ways that are given. As you can see, almost 3 different ways, right? And then we go to 3.10. Maybe we can get another devotee, Mother Srimati. Can you read what is there in the purple text in both the verses? Or Mother, or Kishore Mane Prabhu? Can you unmute them, Amal Thakur Prabhu, so that we can hear them speak as well?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes, I can read.
Yeah, the purple text is good, Prabhu. So again, different ways to go to the spiritual world. So when you read this, you are the one who is guiding us on this pathway. It might be there in Bhagavad Gita, but today on this Father's Day, you're giving the instruction given by our ultimate Father, Lord Krishna. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, yes. Bhagavad Gita 3.10, the text in the purple, be thou happy by this, yatnya sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of the activities, one should act as a matter of duty. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So here in these 2 verses, Krishna is saying another pathway, another exit to get out of this material world. If you're happy with the sacrifice, so sacrifice can be many different ways. Yajna means sacrifice. In this Kali Yuga, it's Sankirtan Yajna. We chant the holy names of the Lord. If you're able to do fire sacrifice, many different sacrifices are there, right? So if you're able to do that sacrifice sincerely, you go back home, back to God. And then the second verse there is not being attached to the fruits of our activity. So I did this, I'm not getting credit. I want this because I did this, right? So those are the fruits of activities, right? So which is again a constant theme across Bhagavad Gita. So again, in these 2 different exits from this burning house, Lord Krishna is saying, if you do your sacrifice in any way that you are devoted to, and also if you're not attached to the fruits of activities in whatever thing that you do, then you go back home, back to Godhead. So we will read a few more as well. Any Matajis would like to read this? What is highlighted in text? You don't even need to read the verse because all of us can see that. Mother Srimati?
Yes, true. I will go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mother.
No, Mata, you go.
Oh, you are going. Okay. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activity, and fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, perform who knows the meaning of sacrifice, controlling mind, senses, performing austerity, practice yoga, study the Vedas, control breathing, situate in the boat of transcendental knowledge.
Thank you, Mother. So when you or anybody who's reading it, we are getting this information which is going to be ingrained into our mind so deeply, right? So just to summarize, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, just by hearing the past. That's why all of you are taking part in Srimad Bhagavatam Katha and hearing so many classes by so many other devotees as well, because Krishna is saying, if you just hear my pastimes, then you go back home, back to God. So each are independent by itself as well, right? So there are no prerequisites. You should have this to get out of this burning house. So if you just sincerely hear the pastimes of the Lord Krishna is confirming that you go back home, back to God. Fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, right? So this is a very wide topic. Absorbed in Krishna consciousness can be when you're hearing about the pastimes of the Lord, when you're hearing about the instructions of Lord Krishna from Bhagavad Gita as we are reading today, and also in any service that we are doing, right? So when we are doing the arati, when you are doing, abhishek, so we are fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Connecting that mind with the physical action is very important, right? Because if our mind is millions of miles away when we are chanting, the effect is not there as much as when we are in unison, the mind and the activity, physical activity, are in unison, right? So fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness in whatever we do. And who knows the meaning, the performers who knows the meaning of sacrifice. What is real sacrifice? Like tomorrow's Nirjal Ekadasi, right? We are not having water or eating food, not because we want to lose weight, but we are doing it with the intention is important. The intention is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those of the devotees who are in South India, you go to Tirupati and then, they pray, my dear Lord, I'm going to shave my head, as an offering. It's not like God wants our, gray hair or hair is, we take so much of care putting the oil and the shampoo and everything else. But technically, it's not like God wants our hair, right? It shows that, hair is one of the most important aspects of man or a woman. We all want to look good. So when you're sacrificing that, I'm giving away what is very near and dear to me, right? Same thing with money. We work so hard. When you give it away for any devotional purpose, that is a sacrifice, right? Same thing when you're not eating, you're controlling, your devotion is more important than me, having some food, right? So those are all the meanings of actual sacrifice. There are many, many more, but again, we'll just go through all aspects of this Bhagavad Gita, funneling of the verses, which talks about the different ways to go back home, back to God, right? And situated in the boat of knowledge, transcendental knowledge. Just because we are situated in the boat of knowledge, then we'll be able to go across this ocean of miseries, which again, you can think of this burning house, right? So situated in the boat of knowledge means understanding what is there in Bhagavad Gita, internalizing. It's not just to preach others, oh, Prabhu, you should not be very happy or very sad, okay? That's an instruction from Bhagavad Gita. No, that is later on for others. But for us, it is the Bhagavad Gita's teaching is given not for us to preach first, but for us to showcase to others that we have understood it, we are internalizing it, just like our children, right? When we tell them to do something they may not do, but when they see what we do, they do that, right? So the key is for us to internalize and change, not necessarily to preach to others. That comes later on, right? And if we have really imbibed that consciousness. So we will go quickly into the next set of verses, different doors, right? As you can see, different doors for us to open and go out, right? So can we get another Mataji who said, who wants to read? I don't know who it was. Mother, can you read what is there in purple text alone without the verse number? Anybody? Okay, one who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities, right? So what comes by itself, we don't hate it, we take it, right? So we read then, we understood that in the Sudama's pastime, right? So one who is neither hating or desiring the wealth, it is said, our Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that then Krishna gives. But if somebody like Jada Bharat absolutely says, I am totally averse, I don't want to get involved in this, Krishna does not force him. Right? When somebody is neutral, like Ambarish Maharaj or Prataparudra, then he gives it to them because they use it in the best possible way as well. So we should neither hate nor desire the fruits of action. It is said here. Yes, Jagannath Mishra Prabhu, can we go through it? And yes, Prabhu.
Can she read, please?
Sorry, Prabhu?
Can Sachi Mother read, please?
Oh, please. Yeah. Go ahead, Prabhu. Thank you for that.
Thank you. One who neither hates
just this one. Purple.
person, but that one is also purple.
Yeah, the purple text from all the verses, Mother. Thank you.
Person engaged in devotional service, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, one whose happiness is within, those who are beyond the devotees, always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly enduring for perfection, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths with the nostrils, controlling the mind, sense, and intelligence.
Thank you, Mother. So again,
So, Prabhu, thank you so much.
thank you. Please, Mother, please continue to read whenever you get an opportunity. We want to hear from you as well. So beautiful set of verses from the 5th chapter. So I've gone systematically to put all this together. Again, the key is, how to go back home, back to God. So every verse, what we have highlighted, the net result is, you go back home, back to God. So if you don't hate or desire the fruits of your activities, you go back home. If you're engaged in devotional service, remember it was there in a 2nd chapter as well. So again, it's reiterated because devotional service is the foundation of all what we do. If our intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge is all fixed in the Lord, one whose happiness is within, because if you're always looking to be happy because if somebody praises us or when we get this material, this item, then we are never going to be happy. Or even when we get the happiness, then the best of things that we got, maybe it was damaged. It could be the ultimate phone or whatever it is, suddenly it gets dropped and there is a crack, then oh my God, right? So if anything that is, of course, we will need some basic things, right? We're not saying that we should not have, of course, all of us do have that, but if you're excessively attached, then with the material that comes from external sources, and then there is also the disappointment that comes with it, because at some point that relationship is going to end with either the material or with the human being, right? And beyond the dualities, we already talked about happiness and distress being equipoise. So again, it's repeated here, and it's a common theme as well, and working for the welfare of all living beings, right? So again, it's not to keep Krishna out of the picture, but keeping Krishna into the picture by working for the welfare of all living beings, right? Because Lord Krishna is there in the heart of all the living entities as well. So when we serve them, we are serving Lord Krishna in that way, right? And they're free from all sins, because when we engage in devotional service and when we are keeping away from illicit material attractions, then we are keeping away from sins as well. And then concentrated, and then Lord Krishna in 5.27 and 28 talks about this meditation, right? So it is a process that is given by Krishna. We cannot say no, let's ignore this. No, this is a process that is given as a way to go back home, back to Godhead, right? So controlling the mind, senses, intelligence, how you keep your eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, and then the pranayam. If we did this in one of the session as well, right? So we took all the verses about pranayam from Srimad Bhagavatam, especially because in Bhagavad Gita is mainly like the formula, right? Headlines, but then we need to nicely have that correlation between Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Theory versus practical examples based on the past tense that is there. Then we'll be able to understand the bigger picture. So many wonderful verses that describe about pranayama performed by great personalities as well, right? Okay, so we have Nitai Prabhu also there. Nitai Prabhu, can you read what is there in purple text from the 6th chapter?
Hare Krishna. Practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities. His mind regulated, washed of all contaminations.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Prabhu. So we're just reading the key points because we're keeping time in mind. So just the key points. You're making note of these verses. Every verse that we are reading partially today, with the key emphasis on different ways to go back home, back to Godhead, is what, even if 5 or 6 sticks in our mind, and we are able to practice that, then ultimately it is for our success. So would anyone like to read this? The screen that I have, I'm not able to see everybody. Mother Kushma, please go ahead.
Being engaged in my transcendental service, and my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet.
Yeah, so what I didn't underline in the second, so let's look at the first one, right? Being engaged in my transcendental service, right? So there are many ways to perform service to the Lord. We talked about 9 forms of devotional service, but there is actually 64 forms of devotional service that we know from the nectar of devotion, right? So even having Tulasi, worshiping Tulasi, getting initiated, all that, many types of services are there. So by engaging in those service, then we go back home, back to God. And here it is said that if you worship me, Krishna saying, if you worship me, and we know this famous verse from the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which talks about akama sarva kama va moksha kama udarati. So here, if you want, full of desires or no desires as well, or if you want liberation, then go to Krishna. You don't have to go to anyone else, right? So Krishna is the ultimate source of everything. Through him only others are able to give what they are able to give, even the Devatas. So go to the ultimate source, right? So if you worship Krishna, he's saying you will come to me. That's a guarantee, right? Okay, so another busy slide. This is from the 8th chapter, very significant chapter. So we can get Amal Thakur Prabhu. Would you mind reading what is there in text, purple text?
Thank you, Prabhu. Quits his body, remembering me alone. You should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty. Meditates on me, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me. Engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion. Vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body. When one passes in light, he does not come back. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode.
Wonderful. So Krishna is giving many different doors that are there, right? So think of me, Antakale Chamameva, very famous verse, right? And then, 8.7 is another significant verse, right? Tasmat sarvesu kaleshu mam anusmaritecha. So Krishna does not say to Arjuna, just sit down and meditate on me, everything is good. No, he's saying, think of me and fight. That's your duty. So similarly, if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, you go to your profession, but then live your life in devotion, right? So that's, if you're doing that, then you come back home, back to God. So meditating on the Lord, remembering keeps coming constantly. 8.5, 8.8, 8.10, everything, the keyword is remembering as much. And that's why it is there, 7th chapter, 9th chapter, 10th chapter, 12th, 15th chapter as well. We talked of, I put that one slide with an Excel spreadsheet with animals, birds, everything. So when you look at a shark, when you look at a lion, when you look at the sun, we can always think of Lord Krishna, right? So always remembering Lord Krishna in whatever we can do. So if we have remembered Krishna for X number of times in the last 5 hours, after sessions like this, we should be able to remember Krishna much more, because he's saying is the strength of the, intelligence of the intelligent, strength of the strong, etc. Even if by chance your son is watching some Olympics, which is starting, there is a weightlifter, you can think, okay, he's also given this by the mercy of Lord Krishna, strength of the strong. If somebody is intelligent, right, you can think, okay, so it's Bill Gates or somebody who's with, okay, so that's the mercy of Krishna. So we can somehow link to Krishna, even if it is not spiritual, because Krishna says, right, yat karoshi yadashnasi, yat juhoshi tadasi, yat tapasisi kaunte, tat kurusho madatmana. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer it to me. So even if something that is non-devotion, so in that particular verse, Krishna is saying, the devotion does not just end in the 4 walls of the temple or in the 4 walls within your altar, but when you're driving, thank you, Krishna. Many people don't have eyes, they don't have hands, or the hands are shaking, they can't drive, they don't have money to buy the car. And here you're given me that opportunity. I thank you. Right? Taking bath, some people need others to give them bath, right? So there is always a possibility in every walk of our life to think of Krishna more than what we've been thinking before, right? But in the end, 8.28, Krishna is saying, simply by performing devotional service, you can attain everything, and at the end reach the supreme eternal abode. So the focus of Srila Prabhupada's teaching is devotional service, right? So chanting, hearing, and worshiping the Lord, etc. Right? So that is the easiest and ultimate way to go, but there are many other doors as well. So quickly reading, faithful in devotional service. So not just doing devotional service, right? Yeah, doing arati, thinking of something. No, having that utmost faith. As we heard, faith is the magnet that attracts the mercy of the Lord. Faith is like a Wi-Fi. You cannot see it, but that's what connects us to the Lord, right? Faith is the key that opens this transcendental mercy room of the Lord, right? So we have to be faithful in our devotional service, right? Keep the mind when we are doing any physical activities for the Lord, but at the same time have that complete faith in what we are doing. And and Krishna is saying, those who worship me will live with me. Again, the worshiping part of it, which is part of devotional service, right? And the famous verse from 9.26 to 2.8, right? It's a series of 3 verses, right? you offer with love and devotion, of course, leaf, fruit, flower, or water. Last week we did the Srimad Bhagavatam class and Sudama Vipra's pastime. The only verse that is repeated in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is this Patram Pushpam verse. It is in the 10.81 as well, 81st chapter of the 10th canto, in the Sudama Vipra pastime, and it is narrated by Lord Krishna himself again. When Sudama Vipra went to Rukmini's palace, he was looking which of the 16,108 palaces to go, and then this was the palace, the main palace he went, and then Krishna grabbed that. That's a fascinating pastime. But again, this verse that we are reading, Krishna is saying, if you just offer me with love and devotion, leaf or fruit or flower or water, right? Again, it depends on what is possible for us, right? So if you're such a well-to-do person, we can't strictly go, oh, I'm going to offer only leaf or fruit or water or flower to Lord Krishna. No. What Sudama Vipra was able to offer was what he could, which his wife begged, and the poha, 4 palmful of poha, she was able to beg and give it to him, and he went. And Krishna was extremely pleased. And it is said that, right? Krishna does not look at what you're offering, but what you're holding back, right? And Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He's looking at the mood and the love and the devotion. So it is said that if you do that, I will accept it. And what happens when you accept it? You go back home, back to God. It's a nice series of verses, 9.26 to 9.28, right? And you take shelter of Lord Krishna, you go back home, back to God. 9.34, which is almost the same that we see in the 18th chapter as well, engaging your mind, thinking of me. Again, thinking of me comes again and again. If you think of Lord Krishna more than what you thought of Lord Krishna yesterday or day before yesterday, then we are on the right path to go back home, back to God. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, worship me, etc. Okay? So serving me with love, 10.10, it says, if you serve Lord Krishna with love, and then I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So it's important that we serve whatever we do. We serve the devotees or serve the Lord, not fighting with others. If you serve with love, then Lord Krishna is promising that he'll give us the understanding. All of you are there today. We are reading this concentrated verses from Bhagavad Gita because all of you are blessed to get this funneling by the mercy of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All of you are devoted and serving the Lordship with love. So 11.55, who are friendly to all living beings, right? So it's very important that we continue to be friendly to all the living beings. It can't be like we are good to human beings, but then, if somebody is eating some meat or anything that is not being friendly, and we are supposed to perform this Pancha Maha Yagya every day. It's not like fire sacrifice. We've already heard Yagya means sacrifice. One is chanting of the holy names, Sankirtan Yagya as well. So we are supposed to be performing Pancha Maha Yagya. It's quoted again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this Ranti Deva's pastime is a beautiful example of Manusha Rina that we owe, as well as Bhuta Rina, right? So to all the human beings, a kurta that we are wearing, or even a tilak, and anything that we are wearing, or kanti mala, or the prasad that we eat, just see how many hands have touched it, right? Somebody was driving that and transporting from one place to another place. There is a counter. Somebody is getting paid this much to actually give that to us. So we always are indebted. It's not like the $10 we give for that particular item, but then, we owe to those, unlimited number of human beings that are there for us to have a plate of food. Just imagine the plate is coming from one country, the seeds were sown, grains were grown in some country, somebody processes it and then packs it, another person drives it, sells it, etc. So we're always owing to so many human beings, right? Manusha Rina as well as Bhuta Rina. Just imagine, they say a butterfly flapping a wing somewhere in Amazon causes a hurricane in Florida, right? So everything is intrinsically connected to one another. So we have to be friendly to all the living entities. So if you're able to do whatever, taking care of tulasi, taking care of our plants. In summer, some of you may grow some plants. It's nothing material, because you're going to take the flower and you're going to offer it to Lord Krishna, right? So everything is dovetailed into God consciousness. In the 12th chapter, Lord Krishna talks about controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone. Again, Vidya Vinaya Sampannaya 5.18, right? Continuing from previous chapter. So many of these doors, Krishna is saying, by the way, this door is very close to you. You can take this door. So he repeats the existence of these doors exit, to get out of this material world, right? So fix their minds upon me in the 12th chapter. So quickly going through, one who understands the philosophy concerning the material nature, the living entity, and the modes of nature as well. And one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in all the living beings. Right? So if we think about it, this can change our mindset, right? Where we see, okay, there's no enemy, there is no somebody who we hate, because Krishna is there in their heart as super soul, right? So we may not be matured yesterday, but when we read these verses again and again, then we think, okay, so Krishna is there, so how can I be against this person? Because Krishna is there as a super soul in that person's heart as well, right? And different identities to different material bodies should be taken off. Krishna says, just by doing that, you go back home, back to Godhead. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between body and the knower of body. So body is different from the soul. So these are all significant teachings that Lord Krishna is giving us. You understand this, internalize this, then you go back home, back to Godhead. So fasten your seat belts, being fixed in knowledge. Again, knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. And also key is 14.20, where, Krishna already talked about in the very beginning, in the second chapter, we talked about one who happiness and distress, treats them as equal. No upper control, going beyond upper control limit, not going below lower control limit, trying to be equipoised. So this is applicable to all of us, right? This is one formula that we can all emulate, right? So we will have so many opportunities during the course of the day to not be too excited, not be too distressed, even if it is slightly less than yesterday, then we are in the right progress, right? We are progressing correctly. One who says, Lord Krishna says, lump of earth or a stone or a piece of gold with equal eye, right? Because not everything is temporary. This too shall pass. The most famous verse from Bible as well, this too shall pass, right? Whether it's something material that is so beautiful, it's going to get old, deteriorate. It could be family members, it could be house, everything, this too shall pass, right? So there's a beautiful saying in this Bible as well. Honor and dishonor, praise and blame, all these ups and downs in our life. So if you're just calm, then we go back on back. Again, we're just reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is. What we have done is taken the verses, put it in one bucket, and we are funneling the information so that even if 5 or 10 sticks in our head, and then we are able to sustain that for a period of time or for forever, then it's for our benefit, right? Engaging in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, right? So because there are always, we can come up with a reason, why I am not able to do this today, why I will not be able to do that today, because I have a good justification. No, there's no justification. Unfailing in all circumstances. That's what Krishna says in 14.26, right? 15.5, free from false prestige. I'm so great. I'm great in this. No, who are we? Anybody who is in our position they could have done a better job than what we are doing, right? So we should be grateful. Thank you, Krishna, for putting me in this position. If you're an engineer, it doesn't matter. You're the greatest lawyer, greatest politician. Thank you, Krishna, for putting me in this position, giving me all this, because if anyone else was put in my position, they would have done 100 times better than me, right? So in that way, then we are not in this false prestige, and also free from the duality. See how many times Krishna has repeated. Today we are reading this, right? Free from the dualities of happiness and distress. So not being too happy, not being too sad, because this is part of our life that we'll have to go through, okay? Fearlessness. Let's be, if you have fearlessness, because when you have the confidence, faith in the Lord, then automatically we become fearless, right? Charity, self-control, study of the Vedas. So Krishna is saying, you do all these things, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, free from anger, gentleness, steady in determination, right? So you have to do, because easy route is, I'm not going to do this spiritual activity today. Steady in determination, forgiveness, cleanliness. These are the things that will come only when we keep hearing again and again and again. It's not like when we read it once, it will come. It's not natural for us. That's why this Bhagavad Gita is spoken. What doesn't come naturally to us is what Lord Krishna taught in Bhagavad Gita, and it's been there millions and millions for millions and millions of years. We talked about it. So it's been spoken at least 18,000 times. Bhagavad Gita has been spoken 18,000 times from the beginning of creation. because that's the number of days, because Krishna appears one day in the life of Lord Brahma. So when you calculate it 51 years, when you do the math every day, 365 multiplied, it comes to about 18,000. And Lord Krishna says in 4.1 that he speaks this to sun god as well. So in a way, it's double, right? 18 multiplied by 2, at least 36,000 times Bhagavad Gita has been spoken, and it's spoken again and again and again for different generations. And great personalities like Prabhupada has given us that, because it's not just once it is given, we all will know. That is why these classes are set up in such a way in all the temples, so that we read this again and again, we hear this again and again, so that it sticks in our consciousness. And then lust, anger, greed. So if you are getting trapped in this, again, this is something, because it's natural, it's there in all of us, right? To a degree, lust and anger and greed. Lust means not in the terms of having this attraction to the opposite sex, but anything that we would like to enjoy without Krishna being there. So this is beautifully explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Anger and greed as well. And then if we discard the scriptural injunction, then there's no going back home, back to God as well. So Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all the scriptural injunction, which is what to do, what not to do, just like a doctor prescribing what to do, what not to do. Sacrifice, charity, penance. Again, tomorrow we have this opportunity to go through the sacrifice during this Nirjal Ekadasi, the penance, we can chant, and, sometimes it's very difficult to sit through, right? Our back is paining, knee is paining, push ourselves, whatever devotional service that we do, when we do a fire sacrifice, it's difficult to sit for 3 hours, right? But you push yourself, because it's not a ritual, it's a spiritual. You're doing this to please the Lord, right? It's not for you to gain something. So anything that we do is not easy, right? So any spiritual activity that we do, devotional service, is not easy. So that's why it's called as sacrifice and penance, that we go through a little bit of austerity. Voluntary pain is better than involuntary forced pain on us, because this Maya is ready to give it to us. Right? So we might as well do it voluntarily in a happy way to please the Lord. Right? 18th chapter, Krishna talks about devotional service again, surrender unto the Lord, and then 68 and 71 is after we do the due diligence, internalize, understand it, change ourselves without anger, lust, and greed, then we can also preach to others. Right? It's not like somebody is full of that and then they are preaching to others, you should do like this because Krishna is telling. No, it is for us. Bhagavad Gita primarily is for us to understand and change this, right? So there is a question, situated in the boat of knowledge, can we safely say the boat of ISKCON? Yes, ISKCON is one of the organizations, of course, which is so structured, right? Where else can we go and understand about Bhagavad Gita for one particular hour, one particular verse, right? So definitely it's one of the important boats of knowledge, because we get to know about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam because of ISKCON. If ISKCON was not there, we would not know, right? So it will be restricted to one or two, ashrams in South India or near the Himalayas, right? By the mercy of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, we all get to know that. Now, how many others can say, if you go to so many temples in the GTA area, they may not know. They will go, ritually to the temple every Sunday and then come back, chit chat and come back. But here we get this opportunity. The boat of knowledge is there for us to learn from our centers that is started by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so it's a great question, and then we will summarize it. Okay, so we are almost at the top of the hour. So I've just summarized this. These are instructions to go to the spiritual world through non-devotional process. So Krishna gives many different windows and doors for us to jump out of this burning house. So it's a nice little recap here. Maybe we can get some devotees to read this. Maybe can we get somebody to read this, because you're going to give this knowledge to all of us. Please don't hesitate, because you're going to give this knowledge to all of us. Anybody?
I can do, Prabhu.
Please, Prabhu.
All or part of it?
All of it, Prabhu, this page.
Yeah, thank you for your mercy. 1, stay equipoised while facing dualities of life, thrice. Work without being attached to the fruits of activities, twice. Do not be disturbed by incessant flow of desires. Do not hate nor desire the fruits of your activities. Work for the welfare of all living beings. Be free from all sins. Be free from anger, thrice. Be friendly, compassion to all living beings. Twice. Be equally disposed to everyone. Control the body, mind, and senses. Fearlessness, purification of one's existence, charity, self-control, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. One who escaped these three gates, lust, anger, greed. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you. So again, this is something that we want all of you to meditate on, right? Even if you are able to grab few of this, these are non-devotional processes that Krishna is saying. So this is common for all of us. We all work somewhere. So what we can take and internalize and imbibe it so that we be a better person than we were yesterday. So this is not only for us to go back home, back to Godhead, but it will help us lead a better life even now, right? So towards the end of our life, we need to have it. So some of the devotees say, okay, going back home is later on. Yeah, it can happen next minute or next day, but it can also happen for after many years. But what am I going to gain? So this, when we have these dualities in life, up and down in life, a promotion or a depromotion or a job loss, let's be equipoised as much. It's difficult, and that's why we have Bhagavad Gita, because it's not easy. We cannot just say, yeah, I know this and I'm going to be equipoised. It's going to be difficult. If we are better than where we were before, then we have an opportunity to go back home, back to God. Okay. So, and I think this is the penultimate or the last slide. So this is the summary of instruction. These are the summary of instructions from Bhagavad Gita to go to the spiritual world through devotional practices. The previous slide was a summary of all the non-devotional activities, which is, we can practice it on a minute by minute basis if possible. And now this is devotional service, but this also can be practiced every minute as well, depending on what we are doing at every moment in time. So maybe we can get another devotee to read this.
Okay, Prabhu, I'll read.
Yeah, go ahead.
Engage in devotional activities 4 times. Perform sacrifice, charity, and penance 3 times. Read, hear pastimes of the Lord with faith. Worship the Lord 3 times. Become a devotee of the Lord. Think of Krishna and carry out your duties. Think of the Lord, remember the Lord 3 times. Offer to Krishna with love and devotion. Surrender to Lord Krishna. See the super soul present in every living entity. Follow the scriptural injunctions.
Thank you, Mother. So again, when we are reading this, for all of us, let's really go deep into every word, right? Perform, sacrifice, charity, and penance. Eventually, it is going to take us back home, back to God. That's why we have funneled everything in this one page. We are all doing devotional activities, various forms of devotional activities, and we are performing sacrifice and penance, which is a case in point for tomorrow. We are hearing and reading the pastimes of the Lord. The key is with faith. We worship the Lord. Again, not when we are doing the Arati, mind is 100 or thousands of kilometers away. Let's try to bring the mind and the physical activity together when we are doing this, right? So which is having this worship of the Lord with faith. And then when we are thinking of the Lord and carrying out your duty, right? That's Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu 8.6 verse, right? So we are all working somewhere. We are all grihasthas, as I can see from the names. All of us are grihasthas. So we have to remember the Lord, but at the same time, continue to do what we are doing. We are not just going to be, I'm not going to be a father or a husband. I'm going to quit the job and go to Himalayas. Right? That's not what the instruction tells. And we covered this past time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he went to South India during Gaura Purnima. If you remember, clear instruction Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving to this Kurma Brahman. The Brahman said, oh, my dear Lord, I want to quit everything. Too much of, I'm attached to my family and everything. So I want to quit everything and come with you. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's clear instruction, no, you stay as an householder, read Bhagavad Gita and understand it, and then live by that, and then preach to others, right? So that's the instruction. So here, think of the Lord, remember the Lord, perform your duties as well, and anything that we offer, right? Anything that we are eating, we offer it to the Lord with love and devotion. Is Bhavagrahi Janardana is looking at what, not necessarily what we offer, but what we are holding back. So depending on what we can do, we offer it to the Lord, and then we are seeing the super soul in every living entity. So whether it can be a squirrel that we are trying to hit, or a bird, or a human being as well. So these are all clear instructions that is given to us by the Lord, so that we live a better life now, and at the end of our life we go back home, back to God. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So on this note, maybe we will get, we'll spend a couple of minutes for any devotees who would like to share anything from what we learned today, right? Because these are statements or verses from Bhagavad Gita. So would somebody would like to get 1 or 2 points from what we covered today, so that we can all benefit from what you realized today based on these verses? Anybody?
Okay, Prabhu, there's a stress for devotional service. We should also remember that devotional service is very important. That's the main goal.
Yeah, wonderful point, because it was repeated many, many times, right? Throughout the teachings in Bhagavad Gita, and what we have taken today, different ways to go. Just by performing devotional service, it gives us the peace of mind, and it gives the purification and removes all the contamination when we perform any form of devotional service. And the fruit is the spiritual fruit, not the material. The spiritual fruit is we go back home, back to God. And that's the actual word of Lord Krishna. Thank you, Mother. Beautiful point. Anyone else?
Yeah, other one, Anand, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hello. The other one is that we
You're breaking up, Prabhu. So sorry, we cannot hear you. So Amaltaga Prabhu, do you hear him, or it's breaking up for you too?
I can't hear anything now.
Yeah, just breaking up, Prabhu. Dirnita Prabhu, we can't hear you, Prabhu.
That we have to and then I have to go start from there. I cannot. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
now we can hear you.
Yeah, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah. So that is, you see, if we cannot copy somebody's devotional service. No, we imitate someone. So that what is your capacity of doing the devotional activity, and then you do that one. So
very, very, very good point, right? Like I know some devotees try to chant 64 rounds a day. Yeah, I can chant it any number of days, right? And then everything fell flat, right? So Anukara versus Anusara, I think that's what you're saying. Anukara is imitating, and Anusara is following in the footstep, right? So we do what we can based on our prescribed duties.
Yes, Staneti. What is know your position, and you start from there only.
Yeah, so it's a nice verse. I think once or a few times Jagannath Mishra Prabhu also quoted this. This is from the 10th canto. This is Brahma Vimohana Leela. Sthane Sita Sutigatam Tanuan Mano Viryat Prayato Jita Jita. That particular verse, right? Yeah, nicely said, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Prabhu, I just mentioned that. Can you look at the comments of Jagannath Mishra Prabhu?
Can you read it, Prabhu?
Yeah, he said that, thank you, Prabhu, for such a beautiful summary of a galaxy of verses from Bhagavad Gita of how to surrender to Lord Krishna. Wonderful.
Thank you, Prabhu, Jagannath Mishra Prabhu. Yeah, so surrender and go back home, back to God, right? Because we talk about, we hear about, going back home, back to God. Here it is. Today what we covered is, that's all. It's in Bhagavad Gita. It's a nice little summary. It's the squeezing of the essence of the verses from Bhagavad Gita on this topic of going back home, back to God. So various doors in this burning house is there. You open anything that you feel comfortable. I think that's what Dirnita said. Let's not imitate. Let's not think that that's the only door. That's the best door. Let me run out. We may not have enough time, and we may get burnt. There is an exit here. Krishna has given, personally has given us the shortcut. Yeah, go here, take this. Yeah, just be equipoised. You go back home, back to God, right? So spiritual and non-spiritual ways. Okay, so maybe we'll take one more comment from anybody, realization, and then we can wrap this session. Again, happy Father's Day to everyone. Anyone else?
Prabhu, sorry.
Please, Prabhu, go ahead.
Thank you, Anand Gauranga Prabhu and Amal Thakur Prabhu. So nice for your contribution to enlighten us. And once again, happy Father's Day to all the Prabhus, and of course, Mataji to make it happen. I'd like to just say that I learned a lot of points. One point was I liked your, to paraphrase it, that the Wi-Fi Yeah, like faith is like a Wi-Fi that attracts, like a magnet that attracts the attention of Lord Krishna. I think that's such a beautiful way to put it for how to define faith to a newcomer. The other thing I liked about the class was that, from what I understand from the class, is that there are different ways of approaching Lord Krishna, and for different people from different walks of life. That is, no matter whether you're from one background, another background, you can all go back to Krishna. As he says very nicely, as Lord Krishna says to Arjun, Mam hi partha vipasharta. And then at the end he says, Ye yanti param gati. That is that no matter whether you're in a different class, whether you're low class, high class, middle class, upper class, gresta, sannyasi, all can come back to me, to param gatim. So I think that other point, as you said so nicely, that we all have equal opportunity, as you say, in a workforce. And nowadays that everyone has equal opportunity. Similarly, Krishna has given us equal opportunity in the Bhagavad Gita.
Beautiful, very well said, Prabhu. So different routes will take us to the same destination, just like a GPS, right? So we should know where we want to go, and as devotees, we know we want to go back home, back to God, and serve the Lord to the fullest capacity. But does not matter what sort of whether we are this or that. Does not matter from wherever we are physically, in our consciousness as well. By following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, we can go. All of us can go to the same destination, which is the ultimate.